All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're looking at a huge problem in autonomous driving AI and how a groundbreaking new framework called HERMES Plus is literally bridging the gap. If you've been following the wild advancements in AI recently, you know that teaching a car to drive itself isn't just about slapping a camera on the roof. It's about giving it a mind that can actually perceive reality and accurately anticipate the future. So today, we're unpacking a fascinating research paper that proposes a unified driving world model capable of doing exactly that.
To wrap our heads around this, we'll follow a quick roadmap. We'll start with the split-brain disconnect in current driving AI, introduce HERMES++, explore the bird's-eye view bridge, look at how it links the present to the future, check out how it perfects 3D structures, and finally, wrap up with the road ahead.
So, Part 1. The driving AI disconnect, or what we can call a split-brain problem.
To really understand what's holding self-driving cars back right now, think of current AI as a split-brain patient. On one side, you have generation models. These are absolute wizards at simulating physical 3D space, like mapping out point clouds to track moving objects. But they completely lack semantic reasoning. They have no clue why an object is moving. Then, on the other side, you've got large language models, or LLMs. Now these are brilliant at semantics. They can explain a scene flawlessly, but they're essentially blind when it comes to predicting exact 3D physical movement over time. The big issue? These two sides simply don't talk to each other.
And you can probably see why this disconnect creates a massive safety gap, right? Imagine a car mathematically predicting a bunch of data points moving across the street, but it can't actually understand that those points make up a pedestrian in a crosswalk. That is fundamentally unsafe. And honestly, the reverse is true too. Real-world safety demands that a car anticipates both the context of what's happening right now and the precise geometric changes of what's going to happen next.
Which brings us to Section 2, introducing HERMES++, unifying the mind.
This is where the real breakthrough happens. What's absolutely wild about HERMES++ is that it actually does both of these tasks at the exact same time. It can answer complex reasoning prompts, like figuring out it's approaching a construction site or pedestrian crossing, while simultaneously generating highly accurate future 3D point clouds for the next 3 seconds. It's literally reasoning in text and simulating in 3D seamlessly all at once.
The researchers call HERMES++ a unified driving world model. By fusing these two previously isolated brains into one single framework, it ensures that contextual awareness directly informs physical prediction. So if the language model recognizes a yield sign or a sharp curve, that understanding actively shapes how the system predicts the geometry of the road ahead. It's a total game changer for reliability. Moving on to Section 3, the bird's eye view bridge, our universal translator.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth do you get a text-based language model to comprehend dense 3D physical space? Well, the secret sauce here is the bird's eye view, or BEV. But don't just think of BEV as a simple top-down map. Think of it as the ultimate universal translator. It takes all the different camera feeds from around the car and flattens them into a unified grid. But crucially, it compresses this massive mountain of visual data into language model-compatible tokens, without losing any of that vital 3D geometry.
Because, think about it, if you just feed an LLM flat images, the spatial structure totally collapses. The AI might completely hallucinate a turn just because the camera perspective is weird. BEV solves this. It perfectly preserves those strict geometric relationships, so the system can spot a very specific landmark off to the side, while at the exact same moment tracking the precise trajectory of a pedestrian walking down the sidewalk.
All right, Section 4, linking present to future with time-traveling semantic carriers.
So once the model has a perfect grasp on the present moment, it has to project that understanding forward. Let's walk through how this actually builds. First, raw images get converted into BEV tokens. Second, the language model processes those tokens. Then, and this part is just brilliant, it uses what the researchers call world queries. Think of these as time-traveling semantic carriers. They soak up all that rich, real-world context from the LLM, like knowing cars tend to stop at red lights. And they carry that knowledge right into the current-to-future link to predict the upcoming point cloud.
Inside that current-to-future link, there are two really important mechanisms doing the heavy lifting. First, you have textual injection. This explicitly lets the language model's reasoning direct the physical, spatial evolution. Second is ego modulation. That sounds fancy, but it just means the system adaptively adjusts its predictions based on the car's own planned movement, its ego motion. By combining these two, HERMES++ ensures that logical reasoning dictates the physical future while still perfectly accounting for where the car itself is actually headed.
Section 5. Perfecting the 3D structure. The physics engine check.
Okay, so predicting the future based on language is amazing, sure, but how do we make absolutely certain the AI doesn't hallucinate something physically impossible, like cars melting through walls? To enforce strict structural integrity, HERMES++ relies on a training strategy called joint geometric optimization. You can basically think of this as a built-in physics engine. It is constantly double-checking its own homework against the hard rules of real-world physics and spatial structure.
This optimization essentially works as a dual-check system. First, it uses explicit constraints, matching its final predicted point cloud against actual real-world ground truth data. But then, it adds implicit regularization, meaning it forces the internal, hidden thoughts of the model to align perfectly with true 3D geometric shapes. This dual approach actively squashes weird visual glitches or depth ambiguities, guaranteeing a structurally flawless prediction of the road ahead.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, the road ahead, the impact of unification.
So what's the actual real-world impact of all this? Honestly, the numbers are absolutely staggering. This unified approach results in a massive 41.6% reduction in chamfer distance error compared to leading specialist models for 3-second future generation. To put that into perspective for you, in the world of autonomous driving AI, dropping the error rate by over 40% on a 3-second predictive horizon, that is a literal game changer for safety. And it doesn't stop there. It is crushing benchmarks across the board. It hit an 8.2% error reduction against the newly proposed DriveX model. On the language comprehension side, it beat the OmniQ specialist baseline by 9.2% on scene understanding. And maybe the most impressive part? It pulls all of this off without relying on extra crutches like auxiliary 3D bounding boxes or heavy high-def map supervision. It firmly proves that one unified model is vastly superior to a bunch of isolated, specialized systems.
As the researchers themselves pointed out, this establishes a foundation for interpretable and predictive systems. And look, this isn't just an academic flex to score well on some benchmark test. Creating an interpretable model, meaning a car that doesn't just hit the brakes but can actually tell you why a situation up ahead is dangerous, is an absolutely crucial safety requirement for the future of collision avoidance.
As we finally leave this era of split-brain AI in the rearview mirror, the true promise of fully autonomous driving is coming into focus. With frameworks like HERMES++ brilliantly bridging the gap between reasoning and reality, it leaves us with one final big question. When will your car not just see the road, but truly understand what happens next? Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the road ahead.